flawless start, Derek fumbled slightly in ancient runes. Without his runic dictionary, he mixed up several symbols, likely still an E, for exceeds expectations, but hardly perfection. After dinner, no one relaxed. They plunged straight into revision for potions and astronomy. Having dropped care of magical creatures, Derek had Tuesday morning free. He spent it memorizing star charts and planetary paths, neglecting potions entirely. His reasoning: if Snape hadn't managed to trip him up all term, he wouldn't start now. He was right. During the potions exam that afternoon, Snape's eyes bored into him with open malice. But Derek brewed with his usual precision. At the end, he glimpsed Snape grudgingly scrawling a rare O on his parchment. Midnight brought astronomy atop the tower. Wednesday morning was history of magic. Derek scribbled out everything he knew about medieval witch hunts, recalling even the Salem trials. That afternoon's herbology meant sweltering in greenhouses under blazing sunlight, carefully tending magical plants until the back of his neck burned red. Thursday morning, defense against the dark arts, the final exam. Professor Lupin had devised a practical obstacle course outdoors. Students waded through a Grindle pool, dodged red caps and ditches, trudged through a squelching bog while ignoring a misleading hinky punk, and finally crawled into a battered trunk to duel a boggart. "As expected of you, Derek," Lupin said warmly as Derek emerged unscathed. "Outstanding." Derek took it calmly, his third full mark after arithmancy and transfiguration. If Snape had a conscience, he thought, he'd soon have a fourth. After greeting Lupin, Derek strolled lazily back toward the castle, soaking in the sunshine. Halfway there, Hermione called out to him. "Derek!" She was running, waving hard to catch his attention. "What is it?" He stopped, looking at her. "Did you score full marks on the exam just now?" "No," Hermione panted. "I saw Professor McGonagall inside the trunk. She told me I'd failed every subject. At best, I'll only scrape by with an acceptable." "So that's your greatest fear, failing an exam." Derek fought to keep a straight face. "You didn't have to tell me, you know. That kind of thing is a person's most private secret. I suddenly realized something and wanted to share it with you." Hermione strode ahead in the sunlight, turning back to urge the slow-moving Derek. "Come on, I still need to find Professor McGonagall." He quickened his pace, tilting his head as though listening closely. Hermione reached inside the collar of her robes, pulling out a long, delicate golden chain. At the end of it hung a tiny, gleaming hourglass. "A time-turner!" Derek exclaimed. "Now I understand. You've been using this to juggle 12 classes at once." "Exactly," Hermione sighed, unsurprised by his quick deduction. Looking back, this whole term was a nightmare, turning it over and over, jumping back again and again, never knowing what hour I was in, drowning in essays and classes. "Thank you, Derek. You helped me endure the hardest days." "We're friends," Derek smiled faintly, picking up her words. "So you're planning to return it?" "Yes. The boggart woke me up." Hermione's tone was lighter now. "I already dropped divination, and once I give up Muggle studies too, my schedule will finally be normal again." "But you just told me all this. I'm sure Professor McGonagall told you to keep it secret." "I promised not to tell anyone, but since I'm about to hand it back, it doesn't matter anymore." Hermione flashed him a bright smile. "I'm really glad we became friends, Derek." Summer heat and final exams lifted from their shoulders, and everyone threw themselves into the days of freedom. Derek set aside books and wand alike, grabbing his firebolt to play Quidditch matches without house boundaries. On the pitch, he met Gryffindor's Weasley twins and Ravenclaw's Roger Davies. The twins, still sore about Hufflepuff's victory, praised his skill while swearing they'd reclaim the cup next year. Everything seemed to be moving in a bright direction, until the last 2 days before departure, when Snape accidentally revealed to the students that Lupin was a werewolf. Lupin's office door stood open. Most of his things were already packed. His old trunk was nearly full. He sat at his desk, quill scratching across parchment, and only glanced up when Derek knocked. "Good afternoon, Derek." He smiled gently. "Though I know it was Professor Snape who let the truth slip, I'm still relieved to see you unharmed." "You're resigning?" Derek touched his right wrist where the magic bound there had already faded. The answer was clear to him. "Yes, Professor Dumbledore gave me this post when I needed it most. I can't repay him by making his position more difficult now." Lupin kept writing as he spoke. Don't worry about me. Sirius is around. At the very least, I won't starve." Derek was silent. He had planned to invite Lupin to America, where the wizarding world was broader, freer, and kinder toward beings like him. But Lupin still clung to this land of both grief and joy. All finished. Lupin set down his quill and closed the notebook, passing it across the desk. "Consider this a late Christmas gift. Inside are all my notes on occlumency and legitimacy. I hope they help you." "Thank you, Professor." Derek accepted it in surprise. "I was planning to ask my mother about these over the summer, but now I can surprise her later." "I forgot you had an aura for a mother," Lupin chuckled. "If self-study stalls, go to her. I was never truly adept at this branch of magic. Only passable. One more thing, Derek." His brow furrowed slightly. "Perhaps it's just my lack of skill, or perhaps my imagination, but I must warn you, I've sensed something odd. Your memory, it feels tampered with." Derek's heart lurched, every hair on his body standing on end. He forced himself not to flee the office, answering as calmly as he could. "My memory? What do you mean?" "I can't be certain," Lupin admitted. "Faint traces, gone as soon as I glimpse them. Maybe I'm too sensitive. But still, I must say it, I believe someone has altered your memories." "What?" Chapter 26, The Invitation. He walked across a barren expanse of rolling hills, the ground split with jagged cracks. Above him, a vast sheet of blue water shimmered like liquid sky, casting rippling shadows that slithered at his feet. An inexplicable instinct drew him onward. After cresting several ridges, the land suddenly fell away, a sheer cliff forming a vast crater below. At the pit's heart surged a pool of silver lightning, sparks leaping and flashing like restless spirits. He crouched at the rim, shook back his sleeve, and reached out to brush a finger against the nearest spark. In an instant, countless images exploded before his eyes, whirling too quickly to grasp. His skull felt as if it would split apart, dizziness and nausea crashing over him in waves. The light twisted, collapsing into the shape of a mouth that whispered straight into his ears, "Your memory has been altered." Derek jolted awake, lying stiff on his bed, breath ragged as though he had been running for miles. He had just torn free from another occlumency exercise, hands clamped over his temples where the pulse hammered violently, dragging him back into Lupin's private lessons. He sat up, one hand still pressed to his temple, while the other fumbled for the water glass on the nightstand. Cool water slid down his throat, clearing the last fog of sleep. The room sharpened into focus. His home in New York, summer night air dimmed by curtains, street lamps outside casting the bedroom in a hazy golden glow. The throbbing in his temples refused to ease. He switched on the desk lamp, padded barefoot into the washroom, and stared into the mirror. A tall, lean 14-year-old boy looked back, black hair tousled from sleep, long brows shadowing blue-gray eyes that regarded him in silence. He didn't need to think. The dream was etched vividly into his mind. The endless wilderness, the cracked earth, the heaving hills, the ocean overhead, the writhing shadows at his feet, the pit of lightning, the fragments of flashing images too fast to see. His memories, just the thought of them made him feel as though a live coal had dropped into his stomach, searing with panic. Summer break had already stretched into its second month, but Lupin's last warning still echoed in his ears, leaving him restless. By any ordinary reckoning, Derek had lived a spotless 14 years. Healthy, diligent, disciplined, the model son any parent might hope for. Yet beneath that flawless record was the truth of a transmigrant, carrying memories from another life. And for a transmigrant, those memories were everything. Proof of self, the sole thread tying two worlds together. Now even that anchor might have been tampered with. The thought of someone rifling through his 2 lifetimes like pages in a book filled him with burning shame and ice-cold dread. But above all was fear. If anyone realized the significance of the 7 books within his memory, straightforward, prophecy-like accounts without riddles or obfuscation, they could plunge Britain into chaos and bloodshed. Countless lives would hang in the balance. And worst of all, he could not tell his parents. For other troubles, he had sought Claire's help without hesitation. But how could he explain this? "Mom, Dad, your son has awakened memories of a past life. There's a little problem." The truth would only wound them. For 14 years, the Greydors had lived in warmth and peace. Derek would not shatter that. So he forced himself to think optimistically. Nothing catastrophic had happened yet. Give him 2 more years of occlumency practice, and he would unravel the truth himself. Come on, he told the mirror, nodding at his reflection. You're still one of the finest wizards of your generation. If you'd only tame that hair, dear, you'd be one of the most handsome too, the mirror quipped back. He slammed the washroom door on its protest, returning to his room. I'm useless in the dark. Give me light, it wailed faintly through the wood. Derek flicked on the overhead lamp and sat at his desk. Half-heartedly turning the pages of Transfiguration today, he raised his wand. Sheets of parchment soared into the air, folding into a flock of paper cranes that circled lazily above his head. His wand was still perfectly attuned to him. His magic flowed easily. That reassurance calmed him more than anything. In this world, nothing gave safety like strength. Settling back in his chair, he returned to the unfinished chapter on human transfiguration. After last term's experiences, he had become deeply interested in animagus magic, and he planned to attempt it in 4th year. Sirius, no doubt, would be delighted to guide him. By the time gray pre-dawn light seeped through the curtains, the street lamps outside had winked out. The sun rose, painting the walls with gold. Derek closed his notes, stacked his books neatly, and headed downstairs for breakfast. The paper crane swooped back to the desk, unfolding into neat sheets. The topmost carried a scrawl of wild, eager handwriting. Dear Derek, how's your summer going? Homework done yet? I moved into Sirius's house 2 days ago. It's apparently the Black family's ancestral home, and thanks to protective charms, I can't write down the address. I hope you'll have the chance to visit. It's, well, strange. Remember the Quidditch World Cup we talked about on the train? Sirius just told me he can get the best tickets. Don't ask how. I'm inviting you and Hermione to come. Ron's dad pulled strings and got some too, so we can all meet at the match. You'll come, won't you? Your loyal friend, Harry Potter. Derek came down the stairs to find the other 2 members of the household already at the table. Claire was hidden behind her newspaper, while Jason chewed on a slice of bread with one hand and flicked through channels with the remote in the other, landing on his favorite morning news. The light in your room was on quite early. Claire's voice drifted out from behind the New York ghost. Did you sleep poorly, dear? I woke up from a nightmare, Derek said, ladling cereal into his bowl and pulling out the chair beside her. So I read for a while after that. Jason finally tore his eyes from the television to study him. Staying cooped up indoors all summer isn't how a boy should spend his holiday. His tone was firm. Go play basketball with the neighborhood kids. In a few days, I'll be heading to Chicago. You could come with me. The Bulls are playing, and if we're lucky, you might even get Jordan's autograph. No need. Derek slid a fried egg onto his plate, his tone casual. I found something far more worthwhile. I'm studying the animagus transformation. The newspaper rustled. Claire's gray eyes peeked out, sweeping over his hair, temples, chin, and hands. Mom, I haven't started transforming yet. Derek shrank back a little. I'm only working on the theory for now. That's dangerous magic, Jason frowned. You should start with simpler transfigurations first. He's already mastered the simple ones, Claire cut him off. Show us, son. Derek raised his wand. A moment later, his eyebrows and hair gleamed gold. Do you understand your level, the difficulty, and the danger of this magic? Claire asked evenly. Completely, Derek promised. I trust you, Claire said crisply. The notes you'll need are on the shelf. Use your judgment. Jason groaned, exasperated. Hey, you two, we're talking about a spell that could cause permanent damage. He was cut off, this time by an owl. Panda landed on the windowsill, wings flapping, beak tapping eagerly at the frame. Ah, you're back. I hope you bring good news. Derek opened the window and untied the letter from the owl's leg. It was Harry's handwriting, scrawled even messier than the last time. Derek, Sirius got tickets. Ireland versus Bulgaria. Top box, 3 seats. Your whole family can come Monday night. Let's meet in Diagon Alley at noon Sunday. Sirius says he's already arranged things with the Flu Network office, so you can arrive straight at the Leaky Cauldron. So, Dad and I are going to the match? Derek handed them the letter. Of course, you two go. Claire lifted her paper again. Quidditch has never interested me. I'll take the chance to catch up on my congressional cases. Perfect. Jason grinned in triumph. At least this means you won't be dabbling in that blasted transformation magic for a few days. I'm relieved. The main hall of the American Wizarding Congress buzzed with movement as Derek fixed his eyes on the massive floating clock, trying to resist the urge to pull out his wand and transfigure his clothes. He and Jason wore khaki jackets over bright red t-shirts, orange hiking pants, and backpacks at their feet, with sunglasses dangling from their collars. Their muggle chic look stood out awkwardly among the flowing robes of the Congress employees. Everywhere he looked, curious eyes followed them. A group of young witches and wizards waiting in line whispered and giggled, one even flicking his wand to turn his robe the same bright scarlet. From farther off, a cluster of dignified older wizards glared as though the two had just committed a series of improprieties. The discomfort didn't last long. A paper crane fluttered down beside Jason, unfolding into a dry, middle-aged man's voice. "Mr. Greedo, the flu network to Britain is prepared. Please proceed to the International Departure Chamber within 10 minutes. Excellent. Derek slung his pack over his shoulder. I felt like we were animals on display just now. This time we'll be dealing with muggles, son. Better to blend in. Jason cheerfully put an arm around him. Don't make trouble for the Obliviators. They've got enough work already. Our destination is Diagon Alley, Derek reminded him. A wizarding street, not a single muggle there. Consider it practice, Jason replied. I trust my son won't cling to outdated views like those old fossils glaring at us. It's not about views, Derek muttered. I just don't like being the center of attention. You mean to tell me you enjoyed it just now? As a top student, haven't you ever been the subject of your classmates' gossip? Jason countered. Jason, is that you? A clear, melodious voice sounded behind them, cutting off Derek's reply. What a surprise to see you here. The arm around Derek's shoulders suddenly dropped. Jason's knees bent and straightened, his shoes scuffing the floor as though he were desperately fighting off a jelly-legs curse. 3 seconds later, he turned stiffly, forcing a smile. Good afternoon, Natalie. How have you been? Derek followed Jason's glance and sucked in a breath. His first thought was, Claire Greedor would not welcome such a chance encounter. A young witch approached with light, graceful steps. She wore a sea-green robe that matched her brilliant eyes, her golden curls catching the sunlight, her dazzling white teeth flashing in a smile. The woman, Natalie, was breathtaking. I've been tied up in San Francisco these past 2 years, hardly able to see you at all. She leaned close to Jason, kissing his cheek. The men nearby, who had been gazing at her in rapture, instantly shifted to looks of naked jealousy. Yes, I'm glad for this. Reunion as well. Jason eased back a half step without making it obvious. Have you been reassigned to the East Coast? That's right. She smoothed a strand of hair behind her ear. I've been transferred to Gringotts headquarters in New York. Came to the Congress today for formalities. And you must be little Derek. Her green eyes widened as though just now noticing him. Good day, ma'am. I'm Derek Greydor. He extended a hand. You and Jason look so alike. She brushed kisses against both his cheeks. Especially your eyes, so blue like the sea, with a touch of gray. Quite handsome. Derek flushed hotter than before, his cheeks burning. Time's running, Dad. The flu is waiting. Right. Jason let out a relieved breath, turning to Natalie. We're on our way to the Quidditch World Cup in Britain, so we really must. Don't worry, I won't delay you. She nodded with a charming smile. Until next time, Jason. And you, young Derek, I've heard about your situation. Her laughter chimed like silver bells. An inheritance not easily won. If you need advice, you may consult me anytime, free of charge. She glided away into the elevator, like half the men in the hall watching after her with regretful faces. Jason avoided Derek's gaze. Don't stare at your father as if I've done something wrong. Claire knows her. He nudged Derek forward. That was Natalie Prentice. Same house as me, Water Serpent, 2 years below. After graduation, she joined Gringotts. Your ex-girlfriend? Derek asked with open curiosity. No, absolutely not. Jason's denial was swift. After a pause, he added, she was always dazzling that, but I was courting your mother then. If anything, it kept our exchanges to academic matters. She's certainly passionate. Jumping out like that. Are you sure nothing ever happened between you? Impossible. Don't let your imagination run wild, Jason said firmly. You're 14 now. These days we only exchange letters on magical topics. She's a Gringotts curse breaker, very powerful. Honestly, for your grandfather's inheritance, we might need her expertise. It's too mysterious. But you looked awfully uneasy, Derek pressed, ignoring the inheritance. What are you afraid of? Our exchanges are strictly academic, Jason insisted. But Claire has never liked her. Perhaps clever, forceful women are destined to clash. His tone suddenly dropped. He glanced at his watch. Ah, blast. We've overstayed. Father and son broke into a trot, ending the conversation. At the International Flu Departure Chamber, the attendant was far from pleased. You're 5 minutes late. The whole schedule after this will be delayed. I don't want to complain, but apologies, Jason cut in at once. Ran into a friend, spoke too long. That's not our problem, the weary wizard said sourly. But fine, everyone does it. Just go. Britain's been prodding us for updates. Thank you for your patience. Jason urged Derek forward. You first, son. Derek stepped into the green flames. The Leaky Cauldron, London, he called, catching one last glimpse of the soot-strewn floor before fire engulfed him. He spun violently, glimpsing flashes of wizards' parlors flying past. Then the whirl slowed, and he landed firmly in a stone fireplace. Clambering out, he found Sirius's anxious face right before him. Thank Merlin, you're 5 minutes late. I thought something had happened on the way. Held up at the Congress. Derek staggered upright, still dizzy. I'm sorry. Peering past Sirius's shoulder, he took in the dim, shabby pub, flickering lamps, old women sipping sherry, one puffing on a long pipe, a tiny man in a tall hat chatting with the balding, walnut-faced barkeep. As the vertigo ebbed, the room came into focus. Behind Sirius grinned Harry Potter and a wild-haired Hermione Granger, with a well-dressed muggle couple standing protectively at her side. You gave Hermione quite the scare, Harry said, clapping his arm. She was tugging at her hair, saying you might have dropped into the Atlantic or something. Sorry, really. I didn't mean to worry you. Hermione rushed forward and hugged him tightly. Thank goodness you're fine. Flu and portkeys are no joke. If anything goes wrong, it's dangerous beyond belief. Let him breathe, Hermione. Sirius thrust 2 butterbeers into Derek's hands. The Flu network is hardly known for comfort. The fireplace flared green again. Another spinning figure appeared, and a moment later Jason stepped neatly out, scanning the room. You must be Mr. Black. He offered his hand to the tall, gaunt man. Jason Grader, Derek's father. Thank you kindly for your invitation. Love, please call me Sirius. Sirius gripped his hand warmly, shaking it with enthusiasm. Derek has been a great help to me. Mrs. Greedo didn't come along? She's been tied up with work lately, so she had to miss this grand occasion. Jensen's gaze shifted toward the 2 behind Sirius, his smile widening. And these must be Mr. Potter and Miss Granger. A pleasure to meet you both. We're pleased to meet you too, Mr. Greedo. Harry and Hermione answered together. Then Hermione, as if suddenly remembering, tugged at her parents' sleeves. These are my mum and dad. They came with me today. Once introductions were finished, the 7 of them gathered around a table. Of the 4 adults, Jensen was the only one born into the wizarding world who also had deep familiarity with Muggle life. It didn't take him long to ease the Grangers' nerves, and soon they were laughing together with Sirius over shared conversation. Meanwhile, Harry pulled Hermione and Derek to sit close, brimming with excitement as he launched into tales of his summer, or rather of his new magical home. That day, Sirius came to take me from Privet Drive to this place called Grimmauld Square. At first I thought he was joking. He told me the address was number 12, Grimmauld Square. But when I got there were only number 11 and number 13. No number 12 at all. And then, this is the incredible part. I didn't even say a word when suddenly a door just appeared out of thin air. Harry's eyes shone as he waved his arms about, reliving the moment with infectious energy. It was obvious he'd been dying to share this story. Hermione nudged Derek's arm and pulled a face at him. What, you've heard this more than once? Derek murmured. Counting the letter, this is the 3rd time, Hermione sighed. Half an hour ago, he was even more worked up. He nearly knocked over his chair. A quarter of an hour later, Harry wound down his fervent speech with words like ancient and dust-ridden before finally falling silent. Hermione let out a long, relieved breath. The match is tomorrow, Derek asked. So where are we staying tonight? At your place or elsewhere? Harry's voice dipped a little. I'd love to invite you over, but the house isn't in the best shape. He hesitated, then went on. Sirius is the last of the Black Line, so during the years he was imprisoned, no one tended the place. He's worked hard just to clear the living room, kitchen, and 3 bedrooms. The rest of the house is nothing but dust, cobwebs, and heaps of junk. So everyone's staying at the Leaky Cauldron tonight. We've booked rooms upstairs, and tomorrow morning we'll leave together with a port key. You mentioned in your letter that Mr. Weasley managed to get tickets too. So we'll meet Ron at the stands tomorrow? Hermione asked. Harry nodded, then a sly smile spread across his face. Sirius says the Ministry's in chaos today, not just because of the Quidditch World Cup, but also because of Bertha Jorkin's disappearance. And after that, there's... Hermione, we should be going. Mr. Granger glanced at his watch as he stood. I've patients scheduled this afternoon. Be safe and have fun, sweetheart. Stay for one more drink, then we'll stroll through Diagon Alley together, Sirius urged. Let's share lunch at least. Thank you, Mr. Black, Mrs. Granger said, kissing Hermione's forehead before straightening. But we really do have things to attend to. Please, take good care of her for us. Don't worry. I love spending time with kids. And with Jason here, they'll have a blast, Sirius said cheerfully. Jason gave a reassuring nod and shook hands once more. Perhaps Jason looked far more reliable than Sirius. After that, the Grangers offered no further warnings and left the pub. In the daylight streaming from outside, Derek took a closer look at Sirius Black. Compared to the skeletal figure he'd seen last year, Sirius looked much healthier. His hair was neatly combed, his beard shaved clean, his cheeks had filled out, and his frame was no longer gaunt. With his tall build, he even carried a touch of rugged strength. What's the matter? Can't recognize me anymore? Sirius grinned. No, just you look like you've been eating well. You've recovered nicely. Don't give me the credit. Sirius rubbed his chin. These days it's Harry and Remus doing all the cooking. I'm not even allowed in the kitchen. Professor Lupin isn't here? Hermione asked. Is he still unwell from last month? Sirius's smile faded. The idiots at the Ministry have always discriminated against beings like him. His lips formed a silent curse. I managed to get top-row tickets this time, but Remus didn't want to stir up trouble. Harry and I tried to convince him, but he insisted on staying home. Harry drained the last drops of butterbeer, then slammed the bottle down with a loud thud. How about a walk through Diagon Alley? Hermione suggested quickly. I'm out of a few potion ingredients, and Crookshanks needs more food. Sirius immediately pulled a leather pouch from under his seat and shoved it into Harry's arms. Go on, kids. Buy yourself some cold drinks or whatever catches your eye. He winked. Harry, you're treating today. And Derek, this is your first time in Diagon Alley, right? Make sure you enjoy it. Harry trudged ahead, footsteps heavy, as they made their way through the bar and into a small walled courtyard. Other than a trash bin and some weeds, the space was empty. Hermione drew her wand and began counting bricks above the bin. 3 up, 2 across, she murmured. You didn't come to Diagon Alley last year, Derek? No, things were rushed then. All my supplies were ordered by mail. Then step back. She tapped the wall 3 times with her wand. Welcome to Diagon Alley. Honestly, saying that never gets old. The brick she touched trembled, then shifted, opening into a small hole. The gap widened until a broad archway appeared, revealing a winding cobblestone street stretching out of sight. Remarkable, very classic, Derek admired. Fifth Avenue is bustling too, but it's entirely commercialized, lacking the charm and history this place has. Enjoy it, Harry said, his mood lifting slightly. How about ice cream, my treat? 5 minutes later, Harry, Derek, and Hermione each walked out of Florian Fortescue's with a massive banana split floating at their sides, eating as they strolled down the sunlit street. Harry had paid for all 3. When's your birthday, Derek? Hermione asked. I completely forgot to get you a present last term. August 10th, just passed a few days ago. Derek smiled. But thank you. Next year will do. Hermione groaned at herself. Oh no, how careless of me. I should have asked you at the end of last term. Harry latched on to something else. Wait, you're younger than me? He measured Derek's height with his hand, incredulous. Are Greydors just naturally tall? You've got at least 3 inches on me. Harry, I'm nearly a year older than you. Derek burst out laughing. I was born in 1979. I'm already 15. Huh? Any child who turns 11 before September can start school, Hermione said curiously. By that, you ought to be in the year above us, unless Ilvermorny does things differently. School ages are about the same everywhere, Hermione, Derek explained. But when I was 2, I fell gravely ill. I was weak for years, and my mother worried. She delayed my enrollment by a year. He added quickly under her worried gaze, but I'm perfectly healthy now. Don't forget, I'm on the team. In truth, Derek had woken up after that very illness at age 2. He suspected the sickness had claimed the original boy's life, and only then had he, the transmigrant, slipped into this body. From a dim little shop came a soft, low hooting. The sign read Elop's Owl Emporium, Tawny Owls, Screech Owls, Barn Owls, Brown Owls, Snowy Owls. Derek bought a large bag of owl treats, pine nut flavored, just the way Panda liked them. Hermione picked up a term's worth of food for Crookshanks at the magical menagerie. They also stopped by an apothecary, its air thick with the stench of rotten cabbage and bad eggs. Harry restocked lionfish spine powder and belladonna essence. Hermione purchased powdered aconite and evening primrose extract, having used plenty of both on Crookshanks last term. Derek debated buying a cauldron of pure gold or quartz, both highly stable, unlikely to react with ingredients, and excellent for improving potion success rates. I heard Snape blames you for Sirius's escape, Harry said sensibly. Best not to show up with some fancy cauldron. He'd mock you to death. Thinking of how he should have scored top marks last term but ended with only an O, Derek reluctantly agreed. I thought Snape would at least treat you better, Harry said. After all, your father saved his life. I don't hold out any hope, Harry said dryly. He hates me. You can see it in his eyes. Thank Merlin he hasn't tried to poison me yet. Harry? Hermione shot him a reproachful look. Snape is terribly biased, yes, but at least he's competent. Far better than that fraud Trelawney. And honestly, your potions work does need improvement. Harry ignored her, pulling a face at a jar filled with glossy black beetle eyes. Even without the book list, Hermione had gone ahead and bought several newly published titles from Flourish and Blotts. Derek picked up a few works on human transfiguration, while Harry chose a copy of Curses and Counter-Curses. Hungry? Harry asked as they stepped out of the shop. Or should we keep looking around? What's that place? Derek pointed to a small, shabby shop across the street. The shop was tiny and dilapidated, its windows dark as pitch. Ollivander's wand shop, Hermione answered. The only wand maker in Britain. Every Hogwarts student gets their wand there. Almost unconsciously, Derek touched the inside pocket of his jacket where his wand rested, thinking of his grandfather, Ethan. Could this wand also have come from Ollivander? Just as he'd once told Ernie at the start of term, he and his grandfather had hardly spoken. They'd never shared a meal. Ethan never visited him, and Jason and Claire never took him to call on the old man. They'd only had 2 true connections. First, when Ethan had gifted him the wand for school, and second, when he'd left behind his will. Let's go in, Derek said after a pause. I want to learn more about my wand. As they drew closer, he saw the peeling gold letters on the sign above the door. Ollivanders, makers of fine wands since 382 BC. In the dusty window sat a single wand displayed on a faded purple cushion. When they stepped inside, a soft jingling echoed from the back of the shop. The front room was small, with little more than a single bench. Harry and Hermione sat down, while Derek felt a strange dislocation, as though time were running backward. He could almost see a boy, the mirror of Jason's features, standing here half a century ago, waiting for his first wand. Good afternoon, a gentle voice said, making Derek start. Harry and Hermione leapt to their feet as well. This place was so unnervingly silent that even a whisper could shock. An old man stood before them, his pale, wide eyes gleaming in the dimness like twin moons. Derek immediately thought of Dumbledore. Hello, he said politely, inclining his head. Good day, young sir, the old man replied. I don't recall ever seeing you here. Have you come for a new wand, or is there trouble with the one you carry? Derek slipped out his wand. I'd like to have it examined. I've never really understood. But his words were cut short as the man's gaze flicked to Harry and Hermione, his pale eyes alight with excitement. Harry Potter! How marvelous to see you again. Why, it feels as though it were only yesterday, an extraordinary pairing. Holly, phoenix feather, 11 inches, supple. And its twin, that formidable yew wand. Yes, Mr. Ollivander, Harry interjected. I remember what you said. And the wand serves you well? Perfectly. Thank you, sir. And you, Miss Granger, Ollivander continued. Vine wood, dragon heartstring, a fine instrument for spellcraft, yes? Yes, Mr. Ollivander, Hermione said quickly, but we actually came today because… forgive the ramblings of an old man. Ollivander turned back to Derek, his voice softening. When a wand I once sold returns here, I cannot help but feel a little moved. Now then, young man, your purpose? This is mine, Derek said, handing it over. I'd like your evaluation. Ollivander took the wand, his thin fingers trembling slightly as he turned it over and bent it gently. His keen gaze flicked to Derek. May I have your name? Derek Greedo, sir. The wand maker lifted it to the light, rotating it between his knobbled fingers. Ah, yes, too long, far too long. 56 years ago, if I recall. Ebony, unicorn hair, 8.5 inches, moderately springy, loyal, exceptionally well suited to transfiguration. Well kept, indeed. There can be no doubt, Mr. Greedo. You are her current master. Her? Derek echoed. Yes, Ollivander said. The core came from the tail hair of a pregnant unicorn, offered freely. She was an understanding creature. I think of the wand as female. Derek blinked. So you're saying I wield a female wand? But I'm a boy. It's rare, yes, but not impossible, Ollivander replied calmly. When a male wizard resonates so perfectly with a female wand, the bond is one of mutual protection. But considering that you inherited it rather than being its first master, the mystery resolves itself. Clearly, Mr. Greedo, a woman of your bloodline cherished you deeply and wished to remain at your side forever. Derek felt a wave of absurdity wash over him. But this wand belonged to my grandfather. He gave it to me when I started school. Silence fell, broken only by the faint sounds of the street outside. My apologies, Ollivander said solemnly. I should clarify. This wand once belonged to a girl named Olivia Hawke. She purchased it from me in the summer of 1938. Chapter 29. Grandmother Derek's brow furrowed tightly. The string of baffling details the wand inspection had revealed was far beyond what he'd expected. Compared to a wand maker who could recall every spec for decades of customers, he found it far easier to believe that wands truly possessed gender and thought of their own. You're saying this wand's first master was a girl named Olivia Hawke? Almost without thinking, Derek pulled the wand back from Ollivander's hand. Do you have any proof? A purchase record from, say, 56 years ago? Ollivander leaned forward across the counter, bracing himself with both hands, his face inching closer and closer until his long nose nearly touched Derek's. Those pale silver eyes stared, unblinking, and Derek felt a prickle of unease crawl up his spine. If I've offended you, forgive my bluntness, Derek said quickly, retreating a few steps and bumping into Harry's shoulder. But my parents told me this wand belonged to my grandfather. What you're saying, it feels strange. The Ollivanders have crafted wands for more than 2,000 years. Every one of us can recall with perfect clarity each wand and each customer, the old man said gravely. We are born with this gift. Trust in my expertise, Mr. Greedo. Harry poked Derek in the back. You'd better believe him, Harry muttered. He really can do that. Last month when I went with Sirius to get a new wand, he traced back through the Black family one by one. Derek, caught in Ollivander's pale stare, decided to shift his approach. All right, I'll accept that. Then, my grandfather's name was Ethan. Ethan Greydor. He studied at Hogwarts. Can you tell me what wand he bought? But 2 seconds later, Ollivander shook his head slowly, his snowy hair trembling with emotion. His pale eyes looked at Derek with puzzlement. I'm sorry, child. Since I took over this shop, no one by the name Ethan Greydor has ever purchased a wand here. What? A chill gripped Derek. Questions surged one after another. If this old man's memory was infallible, if the ebony wand's first owner had truly been a girl, and if his grandfather Ethan had never purchased a wand in Britain, then what of Jason and Claire's story? How had this wand ended up in his hand? Was this the trace of a memory tampering? If this Olivia, 67 years old today, had been the one, what secret had she guarded so closely that she had to alter a child's memories? Ollivander bowed and ushered them out. Derek drifted hazily into the sunlit street, his earlier good mood gone. The sunlight seemed to stab like needles. Harry and Hermione exchanged a look and flanked him on both sides. Half a minute later, Harry yanked Derek back just in time, sparing him from stumbling headlong into a garbage heap. Maybe who the wand once belonged to isn't what really matters, Hermione offered gently. She's always helped you perform magic beautifully. You two are inseparable, perfectly attuned, aren't you? Derek shrugged. Since that talk with Lupin in his office at the end of last term, more and more secrets buried in time had surfaced. It was hard to explain any of it to Hermione. He barely understood it himself. And if he set aside the greatest secret, that he was not the original Derek at all, his worries already felt excessive. What would others think? I do have a thought, Hermione continued, half to herself. Maybe the wand belonged to your grandmother. For some reason she couldn't stay with you, so she left the wand behind. Derek froze where he stood. His heart pounded, racing as he desperately searched for any memory of his grandmother. But there was nothing. 15 years of life, and her presence was a void. His relationship with his grandfather had been distant enough, but his grandmother had never appeared, not once. And over time, he'd stopped even noticing the absence. Thank you, Hermione. That's an excellent suggestion. His voice was suddenly firm, and he quickened his steps toward the leaky cauldron, determined to ask Jason directly. Back at the tavern, he spotted Jason at once, sharing mead with Sirius, the two of them shoulder to shoulder, talking animatedly. So the ministry ended up begging for an appointment, Jason was saying as Derek approached. Truth is, all I had to do was tidy up a house that had sat empty for over a decade. Plenty of free time, but I wrote back that Barty Crouch could come speak to me himself, or we'd settle it in the Wizengamot. And guess what? They really sent Crouch. Sirius let out a booming bark of laughter that shook the bar. Dad, Derek said, sliding up beside them. I'd like to talk with you alone. Derek, Sirius beamed. Having fun? Where are Harry and Hermione? We can eat soon. They're just behind. They'll be here in a minute. Dad, I need to speak with you. Jason's expression sobered. What is it? Can you tell me about Grandma? Derek whispered in his ear. To his dismay, Jason showed no flicker of unease, no nervousness or sorrow, only bafflement. Well, if you want to know. He waved off Tom the innkeeper, who was about to top up his glass. No more for me. Come along, son. They wove between tables and climbed to the stairwell leading upstairs. The landing was deserted, quiet as a tomb. Why ask me this all of a sudden? Jason crossed his arms, leaning against the wall. Truth is, I don't know much about my mother. Derek's stomach dropped. You don't know? What happened? She died very early, Derek. Jason's brow furrowed. I was 2, maybe 3. Can't even remember clearly. Dad never spoke of her, just kept staring at her photographs. Derek felt his breath catch, as if a stone had settled on his chest. And the cause? Was she ill? Or? Oh, come on, Derek. Jason suddenly grew impatient. That's not what you're really after. Why the probing questions? Why the cautious reading of your father's face? I regret being too busy making money when you were small. You spent too much time in Claire's office reading things no child should. Now, look me in the eyes, son, and tell me the truth. What problem are you facing? Derek drew his wand and held it between them. Ebony, unicorn tail hair, 8.5 inches. His blue-gray eyes locked with Jason's. It wasn't grandfather's wand. It once belonged to Olivia Hawke. Who is she? Jason's eyes went wide. It can't be, he exclaimed. Father used that wand for as long as I can remember, decades before passing it down to you. I've never once heard the name Olivia Hawke. What was grandmother's name? Derek asked. Abigail Graydor, of course. Who told you this Olivia Hawke nonsense? Ollivander. I had him examine the wand 10 minutes ago. What was grandmother's maiden name? Morgan. Abigail Morgan. On my 17th birthday, I went to the Muggle police station to check the records. A flicker of memory softened Jansen's face. Father refused to speak of her. Aside from a few photographs, I knew nothing. So at midnight, I disguised myself as a policeman and slipped inside to dig through their files. A tangle of emotions lodged in Derek's chest. Part of him could understand Jansen's longing, but the disappointment was sharp. He had only gained more questions, no answers. I've heard of Ollivander, famous wand maker across Europe, but I'm certain the wand you hold truly belonged to Father. As for Olivia Hawke, I don't know who she is. Perhaps Ollivander was mistaken. Jansen exhaled heavily. In any case, the past is the past. Don't chase it too deeply. Remember, it's summer. We're about to watch the Quidditch World Cup. Enjoy life, son. Ever since you came back from Hogwarts, your mind's been weighed down." He pulled Derek into an embrace before turning away down the stairwell. No matter the doubts, time pressed ever forward. That day, lunch and dinner merged into one. Tom, the innkeeper, pushed 2 tables together in the dining hall, and the 5 of them devoured 5 grand dishes in one sitting. Derek especially ate with ferocity, venting his frustration on the food. Harry, Sirius, and Jansen clustered together, their talk alight with the cup. "Ireland's taking the victory, no question," Sirius mumbled around a mouthful of chicken. "They beat Peru in the semifinals. By strength, Ireland's odds are strongest, but in my heart, I'd rather see Bulgaria win. In the round of 16, the Irish showed no mercy against the Americans. It was a massacre, a 400-point slaughter." Jansen shook his head. "Sure, Bulgaria has Victor Krum, but he's only one man. Ireland fields 7 top players," Sirius said with a grin. "Mark my words, Jansen, I'll stake 100 galleons. Then I'll stake 100 stew pots," Jansen shot back, naming the North American wizarding currency. "I just wish England hadn't humiliated us, losing 10-390 against Transylvania. Wales fell to Uganda, and Scotland got crushed by Luxembourg." Harry's eyes shone with excitement. "Want to bet, Derek? I'll put down 10 galleons." Hermione slammed her foot hard under the table. Derek yelped in pain. "Do try to aim properly, Hermione. And for the record, I never intended to gamble with Harry." Derek had barely sunk into the strange dreamscape of occlumency when Jansen shook him awake. "Up, Derek. Time to wash up." His footsteps retreated, the bathroom light flicked on, and water began to run. "Already? What time is it?" Derek rubbed the cold sweat from his brow. 5 sharp. "Better early than late, son," Jansen said around a mouthful of toothpaste. Derek dressed in silence, the memory of his dream lingering, 2 indistinct female faces swimming in the blue sea above his head. Olivia Hawke and Abigail Greydor had invaded his vision. He resolved to search the student archives once term began. Washed and dressed, father and son descended to the first floor. Harry slouched in a chair, yawning wide, too tired to bother with words. Tom, the innkeeper, had dragged a stove beside the table and was stirring a steaming pot atop it. When he noticed them, he grinned, baring several gapped teeth. "Morning, fancy some onion soup?" "Thank you, Tom." Jansen inhaled deeply, savoring the aroma. "I'd love some." "Where are Sirius and Hermione?" Derek asked. Sirius went to fetch her." Harry yawned again, eyes watering. "Hermione will be down in 5 minutes." Sirius's voice drifted from the shadows. "Well, how do I look, gentlemen? Like a muggle?" He stepped into the light, lifting his arms for inspection. His outfit was a bizarre mix, a pilot's jacket over trousers hacked into capris, sandals on his feet, and beneath it all, an open floral shirt exposing his chest. "Not bad," Harry grinned. "Looks decent enough." "Breakfast is ready," Tom announced. He tapped the iron pot with his wand, sending it floating toward the table before tilting it sideways. With a deft flick, he slid 5 bowls beneath it, catching the thick, steaming soup. Another wave of his wand, and a loaf of bread with a knife drifted down gracefully onto the table. The bread sliced itself neatly into pieces as the pot floated back to rest on the stove. Tom bowed with a gap-toothed smile. "Enjoy your meal, and may your day be delightful." "The smell's amazing. Really whets the appetite," Sirius said, dragging a bowl toward himself. "Not that I'm complaining, but Remus and Harry's cooking tends to be limited. I'll admit, I admire muggles when it comes to housework. They really are industrious. Hard to imagine how wizards would live if magic suddenly vanished." "If you mean the Dursleys, that only applies to my uncle and aunt," Harry said after swallowing a spoonful of hot soup. "Without them, Dudley would have starved ages ago." "I'd say all their brain power is wasted on house chores," Sirius sneered. "Still don't understand why your cousin clutches his backside, or why your uncle and aunt act like I'm about to whip out my wand and cast the killing curse on them." "Ahem, ahem." Jason cut him off with 2 loud coughs. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Hermione entered, dressed in a pink sweater and denim jacket, her face pale as if she'd barely woken. "Why are we up this early? Don't we have a port key?" she mumbled, rubbing her eyes as she sat at the table. "Because once we arrive, there's plenty to do," Sirius replied. "Pitching tents, fetching water, starting fires, cooking, trying life without magic." Harry gaped. "Wait, You mean we can't use magic at the World Cup site? This year's crowd will be about 100,000 wizards, Sirius explained. The ministry couldn't find a magical space big enough. Sure, some areas are sealed off to muggles, but think about it. How could you fit 100,000 people into Diagon Alley, Platform 9 and 3/4, or even Hogwarts? They had no choice but to use some desolate marshland, then throw up every muggle-repelling charm they could manage. Even then, it's risky. A crowd that size, the slightest slip, and the whole wizarding world's exposed. So once inside the campsite, no magic. Everyone lives like muggles. So that's why you and Dad didn't apparate us straight there? Derek asked. Exactly. Sirius pulled a gold watch from his pocket. You're too young for apparition anyway. Too risky. Portkeys are safer and simpler. Now finish up. We've got 6 minutes. Harry and Hermione immediately raised their bowls and gulped down the soup. 5 minutes later, the 5 of them stood around the table, packs bulging on their backs. In the center lay a shabby old scarf. Jason and Hermione flanked Derek, and he could feel how tense she was, her whole body stiff with nerves. She clearly had no idea what to expect. All right, 1 minute left. Places, Sirius said. He glanced at Harry and Hermione. It's simple. Just touch the portkey. 1 finger's enough. He tapped the scarf with his forefinger. The scene was eerie and unsettling. In the empty dining room, lit only by a wavering oil lamp, 2 adults and 3 children formed a circle, each stretching a hand toward the ragged scarf. Any muggle who stumbled upon them would think they'd walked into a cult ritual. Almost there. 3, 2, 1. Sirius muttered, eyes on the watch. Derek felt a hook snag hard behind his navel, yanking him forward with irresistible force. His feet left the ground, and he was soaring. He sensed Jason and Hermione on either side. Hermione's shoulder slammed into his chest, jarring him. They hurtled forward in a rush of wind, everything a blur. His finger clung desperately to the scarf, as if it had a magnetic pull, dragging him onward, onward. Then the world slammed back. Derek landed heavily but kept his balance, knees bent to absorb the shock. He grabbed Hermione's arm just in time to keep her from collapsing, while Jason and Sirius steadied Harry. They stood in a wide, mist-choked marshland. 2 weary, sour-looking wizards were waiting. One clutched a large gold watch, the other held a thick roll of parchment and a quill. Both were dressed like muggles, but awkwardly. The man with the watch wore a tweed jacket over thigh-high rubber wading boots, while his partner had paired a Scottish kilt with a South American poncho. 5:30. From London, the watchbearer intoned. Morning, Basil, Sirius greeted him. Where's our campsite? The kilted wizard just gawked at him. Basil, Sirius said impatiently, would you please tell me where our campsite is? Yes, of course. Sirius, good to see you out of Azkaban, Basil stammered, ducking his head to rifle through his parchment. The Black family campsite, 1/4 mile that way. First plot. Manager's name is Mr. Roberts. Thanks, Basil. Sirius snapped, then motioned for the others to follow. They trudged through the fog-drenched marshland, visibility near zero. After 20 minutes, a door loomed out of the mist, then a small stone cottage, and behind it, hundreds upon hundreds of tents of every size and shape, stretching up a slope toward the dark tree line on the horizon. At the entrance, they hit a snag. Sirius insisted on handling the Muggle caretaker alone, but bungled the money badly. Only a discreet memory charm from an obliviator smoothed things over, and at last they got their map of the grounds. Weaving between rows of bizarre, almost grotesque-looking tents, they finally spotted 2 crooked little 2-man tents. Ron was standing out front, waving wildly. Harry sprinted over and threw his arms around him. Hey, we thought we were early. We were up before 4, Ron bellowed. Climbed all the way up the hill. You won't believe it, but some people came a whole week early. Hermione hugged Ron too. It's so good to see you all, Ron said, a little dazed. Mr. Black, thanks for the owl. Derek, hello? Is this your dad? Ron, who's here? A voice called from inside the tent. A thin, slightly balding, red-haired wizard emerged, looking at them. Then, like Basil the Keymaster, he froze in surprise. Sirius, congratulations. It's really good to see you again, he said awkwardly. Morning, Arthur. How have you been all these years? Sirius replied cheerfully. Then the 2 men embraced tightly. Wow, what a touching reunion. Great to see you, Derek. Oh, and you too, Hermione. 2 identical voices chimed beside Derek. He turned, not surprised to see the Weasley twins. Fred, George, hello, how's your summer going? Their tones suddenly turned conspiratorial. You probably don't know much about our hobbies yet, one of them said. We're devoted to inventions and pranks, though, George, this has become our main business now, Fred added. For example, Derek asked, curious. Fake wands, magical candies, all sorts of little gadgets, George said excitedly. Want a fake wand to prank your friends? Or some fang toffee that makes your tongue grow over 4 feet long? How fun is that? That's not funny, Hermione said sternly. Someone could choke on that. Come on, Hermione, you're not even a prefect yet, Fred laughed. What a perfect day, this once every 4 years celebration. Everyone should have a blast. This is insane. Are the fans always this crazy? Derek asked. The House Cup is already lively, but compared to this, it's like a small wizard meets the big leagues. My ears might explode. Of course it can't compare, son, Jason said, savoring the memory. The best brooms, the top professional players, the matches are thrilling and intense. I'll remember this World Cup forever. Crumb caught the golden snitch, but Ireland won the match. So dramatic, it'll go down in Quidditch history. Crumb! 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 Fred and George jumped into a victory jig, chanting Crumb's name over and over. After the match, sleep eluded everyone. The 5 of them joined the 8 Weasleys in Sirius's lavish tent for a celebration. They drank hot cocoa, excitedly discussing the match. The twins cheered for their gold galleons. Ron drained his cup of cocoa and joined the excitement. No one beats Crumb, he said. Cold-blooded Crumb. One of the twins shouted in agreement. He flies through the air like a bird, Ron said in a deep, exaggerated tone. He's more than just an athlete. The twins flapped their arms around Ron, mimicking a bird in flight, then draped an Irish flag over his head. Cold-blooded Crumb! He's still an artist, a Quidditch artist, Ron exclaimed, wriggling free of the flag. From today on, he's the best seeker in the world. I think you've fallen for him, Ron, Ginny teased with a laugh. Nonsense, I just admire his greatness, Ron said, eyes wide with excitement. But it was too late. Fred grabbed Ron's left hand and began a heartfelt chant. Victor, I love you. George tilted his head dreamily, joining in. Victor, I truly love you. When you left, my heart beat only for you. Bill and Charlie, the eldest Weasleys, jumped in, singing along. Ron's face turned bright red, and soon he was wrestling with his brothers, laughter echoing across the campsite. Derek drifted toward the small tea table in the corner of the tent. Sirius, Harry, and Hermione were seated together, talking quietly. He caught snippets, words like dream, old man, and pain. Quite a match, he said, raising his cup to Sirius and Harry. Thanks for inviting me. We're friends, Sirius replied, pulling out a chair for him. Friends share the good stuff. Everything all right? Derek decided to be direct, just like last semester. Over the past few days, he'd realized Sirius had a typical Gryffindor personality. Straightforward, cheerful, energetic, with a clear sense of right and wrong. People like him hated beating around the bush. During last year's transfiguration lessons, Professor McGonagall mentioned animagus magic. It looks extremely difficult. I checked the records. Only 7 animagi were registered with the ministry in the last century. And then your story came up? Could you guide me in learning it? Transforming into an animal seems incredible. But it's very dangerous, Hermione interjected, eyes wide, whispering urgently. Practicing it requires ministry registration. An unregistered animagus is breaking the law. You could end up in Azkaban. Sirius laughed. Of course I can teach you. Animagus transformation isn't as hard as it seems. Even someone like Peter could manage it. You, a top student? Piece of cake. Hey, wait, Hermione said sharply. We really should think about this. Harry cut her off. Can I learn too? He asked eagerly. So I can become a stag like my dad? Sirius's eyes sparkled with excitement and nostalgia. Remus told me about your progress. You're a bit behind Derek, but that's fine. With effort, you'll succeed, Harry. After all, your parents were both exceptional. 3-1 now, Derek said, spreading his hands at Hermione, grinning. Dear Miss Granger, are you here to supervise our studies or report us to the ministry? Hermione said nothing, arms crossed, helplessly glaring at the 3 of them. When school starts, I'll have Harry bring the notes, Sirius said. We'll meet regularly in Hogsmeade for guidance. Relax, Hermione. Nothing will go wrong. The tent erupted in laughter and chaos for another half hour. After taming Ron, The twins mimicked the opening ceremony antics, including Harry and Ron's attempted leap from the upper box onto the pitch, leaving everyone in stitches. Eventually, Ginny fell asleep at the small table, spilling hot chocolate everywhere.